Good morning, Calvary. As always, it's a joy to be here with you. It was about 3 weeks ago now that this group of people on the stage left for San Francisco for one of our mission trips this year. And as soon as we got back, Brother Paul asked if on this Sunday we could share some testimonies. And people were eager to do so. So y'all have heard me talk about San Francisco for at least 2 years now, if you've been around. So my goal is to say almost nothing today and let everyone else talk. But I am going to ask a few questions just to kind of help get the conversation going. But first, I want to paint just a little picture of the area that we went to. It's called the Tenderloin District. It is one of 13 districts in San Francisco, and it's considered either the poorest or one of the two poorest areas in the city. There's roughly 37,000 residents in this 1 square mile. So think like the population of Nacogdoches in 1 mile. And that doesn't include the 6,000 to 8,000 homeless people that usually reside in or around the Tenderloin. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty congested place. It gets dirty fairly quickly. It's the highest place for poverty in the city. It is also a strangely low crime area. The bad joke is that it's so poor the gangs don't want it. So honestly, like a lot of the drug dealers and stuff that we saw and encountered, they come over from Oakland, and the Tenderloin is this weird little area where you could have one street corner with 4 rival gangs, and all 4 of them are going to be peaceably with each other because it's just kind of first come, first serve for dealing on the corners there. So this was the area we served, and we were with a faith-based nonprofit called City Impact. City Impact has been in the Tenderloin District for 40 years now. It was founded by a guy named Roger Wong, and they have just various areas that we got to serve with them, including a rescue mission, a school, a after-school kids program, a thrift store, and things like that. I do want to give just one quick little warning. If you have little kids in here, we will talk about some of the hard things that we saw, so we'll kind of leave that up to parent discretion if you want your kids in here. If not, Amanda and Shelly are in the back, and they'd be happy to keep an eye on your kiddos. So with that warning out there, let me start, and we're just going to pass the mic down the row. Mike, would you start us off and answer the question, what was the biggest challenge you faced or the hardest thing you witnessed?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for me was just, I've seen the videos. Like Travis said, I've heard him talk about this for 2 years. So I'd heard those stories, I had seen the videos, all of that, but nothing really prepared me for what I would see with my own eyes, smell with my own nose, and hear with my own ears. And that was pretty tough to deal with and surprised me. I think the thing that probably got, I guess, really put an impression on me was when we went into a building, one of the missions buildings, and there were some sheets hanging up on the wall, those big Post-it notes hanging up on the wall, and some children had written, one of them wrote, "Why doesn't anybody care?"
Well, I think similarly to his is understanding that, or being forced to realize that kids are living in this reality, that they're witnessing atrocities almost daily, if not daily. And that stuck out to me as well.
Hey, I'm sorry. Will you also just this first round say your name, and was this your first, second, or third time to go to City Impact?
My name is Colton. This is my second time going to serving with City Impact.
Hi, I'm Jamie. This is my first time going to City Impact. It's hard to wrap up into just a few sentences the hardest thing that I witnessed or saw. For me, there were a lot of beautiful moments. It wasn't all just really devastating. There was you could feel God's love and mercy there. And for me, I wasn't scared at that. I expected maybe to be a little more fearful when I went. There was a lot of love there. The volunteers are incredible. Their strength and want to be there was, I think, for all of us, something we really enjoy being able to be a part of that. It was just the desperation of the people on the first day of the month when they got paid, when they got to get their drugs back, just seeing the brokenness of that, and human beings that are someone's loved ones just stopping on the street and using the bathroom, or being so high that they can't even hold themselves up.
Hi, I'm Chuck. This was my third opportunity to get to go to San Francisco. And I think just on a personal level, the most challenging thing for me was doing the street ministry, because I'm not really like a very outgoing person. I'm usually kind of standoffish when I'm meeting someone new. So it was really having to learn to trust God to give me the ability to do something that doesn't really come natural to me. So that way you can really show the residents there that you are there just to not judge or criticize or look on them as different, but just to share love and empathy and compassion, and just to, try to give a spark of hope where you can.
Hi, I'm Crystal. That's loud. I'm Crystal, and this is my third time coming or going to City Impact. And the most challenging thing I had to realize was that I couldn't help everyone. But the hardest thing I saw, we were at what they called the hospitality hub, and that's where the residents come and they get fed and they hear a service. And there was a young man, and he was, I would have to say, a little over 20 years old. And right in the middle of service, I noticed that he just collapsed against the wall. And after that, he was sweating and everything. I went and gave him several cups of cold water, and just the look in his eyes, the gratefulness in his eyes, that's all he needed. He just needed to be heard and get some water. And so that was, yeah.
I'm Matt. This is my second time to go to San Francisco. And I think the hardest part for me this time was, since we were there at the beginning of August this year instead of the middle of March, everyone's government assistance kicked in, and there was a lot more drug use on the streets about the middle of the week on the first when we were there. And just seeing people just openly out in the road using heroin and stuff like that was very rough and very hard to see for me.
Hi, I'm Joshua, and the hardest thing that I saw while I was in San Francisco were those with medical conditions or disabilities living on the streets, people who were wheelchair bound or people with infected wounds who had virtually no access to medical care and no one there to take care of their needs.
I'm Savannah. It was my first time going. I think the hardest part for me was my mom. We couldn't fix anybody's situation, but it ended up being okay because they really just wanted to be heard, and they didn't want to be fixed. They just wanted to know that they were loved. So it was kind of a good and a bad thing to see.
Can I pass?
Just say your name and
My name's Nate, and this is my first time.
you don't want to say anything? Okay. My name is Luke Wagner. This is my first time going. This is my son Nate. He went with me. And so he was saying that the biggest challenge was kind of what Josh was saying, was seeing people with unmet needs struggle and suffer. As for me, while we're there, we're all given tasks to do things and complete goals of helping people, and it involves all of us working together. So we all have different duties, and we don't see the whole plan because we're all in different rooms trying to accomplish one objective, and if one person struggles with theirs, then there's this whole downstream effect. And it kind of just reminded me of what it must be like to be a kid again, whenever, your parents just say, hey, just do what I told you, and they don't see the big picture. And so it was nice to kind of feel like a kid again and remember what that felt like, and just remember that, like, you're just assigned with doing a specific task. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. But as adults, we have specific tasks that we're supposed to complete, whether or not they make sense, because we don't see the whole big picture. Right now we see in part through a foggy glass, but someday we'll see with a completeness. And so it's hard to just go through in faith to do the thing that you're supposed to do without seeing the big picture of how that fits into everything. So that was kind of the biggest challenge that I had.
Hi, I'm Raiden, and it was my first time going. I think the hardest thing for me wasn't anything specific. It was kind of witnessing just all of the homeless people and not being able to help everyone the way they needed to be helped.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and this was my first time in San Francisco. The hardest thing for me was similar to Raiden's. It was just seeing and witnessing all the homelessness that was going on in the area. I've never seen anything like that before. And you could just look at any homeless person and you could just see all the pain and the fear and loneliness in their face.
Hi, I'm Brittany. It was my first time to go. The hardest thing for me was Matt talked about, like, after the first of the month that everybody kind of got their check, and what they did with it was pretty obvious. We were kind of going about our lives and helping, and it's very obvious how the atmosphere that's there is not here. Like, Nacogdoches is very different, and that's part of the reason we go, is because it brings us out of what we're comfortable in. So I knew what to expect, and as a nurse, I knew kind of a little bit about what I would see. But every morning, Travis would take us to go get some coffee, good coffee. So the first of the month, we were walking down the sidewalk, and we were going to get good coffee. And you just pass people just laying in the middle of the sidewalk, high, not sure if they're alive, not sure what to do. And it's heartbreaking because a lot of them are alone and they don't really group together. Some of them do. But you have to remember that they might not have an earthly father or mother that loves them or cared for them, but there is a Heavenly Father that loves them. And it was extremely hard to watch that and see how alone everyone was.
I don't know what to add to all of this, because I think for me, how many of you see drug use every day and it's out on the street and you just walk by and it's there? Well, I had not been in something like that before, and I had not seen the effect of drug use on a person. And I discovered, I think it's called fentanyl fold. There's a precious young man, well, I don't think he was young, I think he might be old, but you can't tell because of drugs. And I never really saw his face because he was just folded over and his head was at his feet the whole time. So I didn't understand what that was, but that's the effect of drugs on him. But I also knew that we had entered the enemy's territory when we went there. That was, we knew that. And I saw the enemy take hold of a young man on a bicycle, and I saw the enemy come out on his face and his face change, and that was hard. That was really hard.
This is Nancy. That was her first time to go. In case you don't know her. I'm Hillary Fuchs. This was my first time to go, and because you've heard everything, I won't reiterate any of that, but I think because you've heard, you'll understand what I was going to say. As excited and happy as I was to come home to East Texas, Saturday morning leaving was my hardest moment, because it was just that moment of, We can't fix it in a week. So you just have to have the hope and the faithfulness to pray for these people at City Impact. So that was my one, just how I felt, I guess, the moment that I felt the most heavy was Saturday morning, realizing that we were packing bags to leave. But I would go with Mike's answer on the kids' charts on the wall, and that was our second day there. So I had that in my mind the whole week.
Hi, I'm Savannah. This is my first time going. Probably one of the hardest things that I experienced that whole week in the Tenderloin was just all the brokenness and how they used it by being alone was through drugs. And it was just hard to see that. And then working in this school, you have kids come in and stuff like that, but as you go out, there's a group using by the school, and so it's just hard to see that those kids live in that all the time.
Hi, my name is Savannah. This was my second time going, and it was a lot different from the first time. We had a lot more interaction with the residents there and the homelessness, so that definitely hit a lot harder the second time. Just hearing some of the really hard stories that these people shared with us, and just seeing the despair there. It's all really just a lot to take in and process, but it was good to be there just to, be able to shed some sort of light and help these people feel seen. And I had one lady in particular that she was just, when I had mentioned asking to pray over her, she just desperately wanted that, and it was just, it was heartbreaking but heartwarming at the same time, just because she was so grateful, but she had lost so much, and no matter how these people got on the streets by either their own choices or bad circumstances, we were just there to love on them and show the love that God gives us. So, yeah.
My name is Cade, and this is my first time going to San Francisco. I think the hardest thing for me was just, like Chuck said, street ministry. I'm not the most talkative person. I find it hard to, meet new people. But it was mostly for me just walking through you walk right through the middle of a group of people using heroin on the sidewalk. And you gotta think about, you can't really help them all, but you gotta try.
All right, Cade, you can keep the mic, and for the sake of time, I'm gonna sort of combine my last two questions, and then just pass the mic back the other way. So Cade, you can answer first. What was the most impactful moment of the trip, and/or how did you see God moving, either in the Tenderloin, through City Impact, through our group, something along those lines?
It was during street ministry. There was a man, I couldn't really tell how old he was, maybe late 20s, early 30s. We stopped and talked to him, gave him some food, and he kind of just told us part of his story. His name was Tim. Everybody just called him Chachi. Don't know why. I guess that was the band name. He used to play in a punk rock band. And he told us outright he had been on fentanyl and a lot of things for a long time. And he was trying to get himself clean, find a safe place to stay. And it hit me hard talking to him, but I felt glad for him, because somehow he knew of God and he knew what we were there for, and I got to be the one to pray for him. So.
I don't really feel like there was one just super impactful moment, because there was a lot of smaller, heartbreaking and beautiful moments throughout the week. But I think I had mentioned her earlier. There was this lady, Michelle, that she just kind of poured her heart out to me. And especially just street ministry, going around and just talking to these people. And we really weren't supposed to touch people, but if we felt comfortable, it was just really nice to be able to be a person with them and shake their hand and just I don't know, just be present with them, which was sometimes hard. I struggled sometimes to be present in the moment when I was getting really self-conscious about, like, if I was going to be able to pray over someone and how my prayer sounded, or if what I was saying meant anything. I had some really awkward moments and some stumbling, but each person was really gracious towards us, and yeah, I think that's just something God's going to try to work through me, and hopefully it'll get better.
So probably one of the best things that I experienced was growing with this group right here. Just to have a support group that knows what I saw, what I experienced, how I feel. And one thing that I saw how God was working through the week was through the school. A couple of us got to go into the school and work a backpack drive, and all that is the kids that live in the apartments in the Tenderloin with their mom or their father, whoever is taking care of them, come into the school and get a backpack, and it's filled with school supplies for the whole school year. And just to see that those kids' faces light up just to get a backpack and school supplies, it just shows that it's the little things that matter.
Okay, I didn't mention that that guy down there is my son. So, of course, that was impactful for me because I got to watch him serve. I would say, like Savannah was saying, with us being a group, the biggest thing for me is that aha moment of I watched the church be the church. And it wasn't just the 20 of us. It was a group from Virginia that we served with. It was the volunteers. It was the staff members. And it was like, oh, this is what we're supposed to be doing, not necessarily just in San Francisco at City Impact, but just as Hillary goes about her day, you're supposed to act like this, serving others. And a friend shared a quote with me that said, our job is to love others without stopping to inquire whether or not they are worthy. And so I just saw the church act that out.
Okay, you can tell we're female because I'm along with them too. The most impactful thing for me was we got there on Monday. Tuesday morning, I'm a 4 o'clock riser. That's when I do my quiet time, and I'm on the top bunk, and I've got my little flashlight on my phone so I won't wake anybody up. Then all of a sudden, a light comes on over here, and Hillary's doing hers. And then a light comes on down here, Crystal. And then lights just start coming on all over that bunk room doing our quiet time, because you couldn't do what we were called to do without starting your day with the Lord. And that room was full of the glory of God. But then also in the evening, we would come back together and just share. It would be a whole lot easier if we were circled up right now. Just share what God had done and what we saw and the ache in our heart. And that to me was God's flower garden. And all I could see was him smiling down going, those are my babies, doing what I've called them to do. So that's what.
Impactful moment? Is that what we're on?
Or best, or what you saw God doing.
I have to reiterate what everybody else was saying too. There were just so many moments of mixed emotion, like highs and lows at the same time, you know, amazing, beautiful things with heartbreaking pictures. But I think the thing that there was a feeling too about every place you went. And so City Impact is kind of, because it's limited, there's like one building in one area for, you know, worship and us staying, and then there's another for the hospitality hub where people come and get meals, and then there's another for like the school. And going to the different buildings, you could feel the heaviness out on the street, and then whenever you walk into like the school, for instance, there was just a lightness to it. Immediately when you walked in that building, it was the presence of God. You just could feel it. And, you know, the kids living there see that stuff and they grow up in it, and they are the future. I mean, they could potentially be the future people on the street. You know, that's the reality of it. But the beautiful thing that I saw was Eli and his son. Like, he was around us a lot, and Eli's kind of a big guy, and but his son was just a normal kid, bouncing around, talking to everybody. Like, this didn't change anything. He was just himself. Even when we were on the street, he knew that his dad had his back, that he was safe, that there was nothing was going to get him. And I just saw that as a picture of us, that like we can rely on that. We have that, whether it's like something we can see or touch or feel. Our God is there, and he is our Father that protects us and keeps us and loves us and is always there for us.
The most impactful moment for me was similar to Cade's experience. I had the opportunity to serve in small groups with him and Crystal during street ministry. And we met a few people. I remember meeting Chachi and Abu, and I got the opportunity to pray with them, which was really the best moment for me there. I took away that we are all God's children, and God sees us all the same. We're all struggling with sin. Some people express it physically, some people express it internally.
My most impactful moment was probably working in the hospitality hub, being able to hand people food and just seeing the looks on their face after you were able to bless them with that. The way I saw God working was through all of us, being able to see everyone help and just being able to debrief with them and being able to hear the way they felt about things was the way I saw God working.
Hey, Luke, before you start, either we're going to bleed into Sunday school or we got 3 minutes to finish this section. Are you good to wait until you give your longer talk in just a second? Okay. And then for the rest of you, I'll try to keep it to like a sentence or two, or I'm going to have some angry Sunday school teachers.
I think that most impactful moment when I was there was that on those posters where the kids wrote their biggest problems and stuff, one was like, why does nobody care? And during the backpack drive that we did, just seeing their faces that like someone did care about them was really impactful. So
I think for me, my mom, Matt, and I met this man. I think his name was Rusty. He came up to us in the street. He was like, thank you for coming, and City Impact helped me become clean 18 years ago, and now that I get to share the gospel with other people. So it's really encouraging that we get to like, what we do in 1 week doesn't like change everything, but it like definitely helps and like moves people towards like a good direction.
I saw God working in this group. I saw the impact of enthusiasm from the youngest age representation of this church up to almost the oldest, and everyone working with the same vigor and just enthusiasm, whether the work was hard or manual labor or whatever that was, just seeing the joy in everyone's face to do God's work.
The most impactful moment for me was the same as Savannah's. The guy that walked up to us and said he had been sober for 18 years because of City Impact, seeing how, even though we're only there for a week, seeing the actual fruits of the labor that we were doing come to life, it was awesome to see. I think the way I saw God working in our group was a lot of these people here, that might have been their first mission trip to go on, but it ignited them to want to continue doing that. That there were so many people in our group that were already ready to come back whenever we get back on Saturday. They're like, when are we going again? And them just wanting to have fire and go out and do the same thing here in Nacogdoches in our community was awesome to see.
My impactful moments, I had many, but one of the most was watching that girl over there be on the mission field and just have the love of Christ in her heart and pour out to people. That's my daughter, if you don't know, one of the Savannahs. And then also seeing God work. I don't know if you can feel it right now, but we can definitely feel it up here. God is working, and he has set a fire under us, and he's working to bring it back here, and we're ready. I mean, we're already ready. We've already talked about it. So he's changing hearts, and we are ready to do his work in the Nacogdoches community.
Well, she just kind of stole my answer. So, yeah, I think it's just, seeing God working in this kind of growing awareness that, if we can travel halfway across the country to a place that's about as opposite of East Texas as you can get, and just sort of throw ourselves into service there, I think it's kind of like, why do we have to be afraid of trying to do that here in our own backyard? So I think there's just kind of this sense of, kind of feeling that conviction of, let's get up and do something here. Even if we don't really know what that is yet, it's being aware that we need to be looking out for things right here in Nacogdoches.
So the most impactful thing for me was pretty much to sum up what everybody else said, just our group, and not our group alone, but like Hillary touched on, were the other groups from the other states that had come, and just the city impact volunteers and workers themselves. And they weren't exhausted or drained looking. They were happy and full of joy, and they really wanted to be there, and they were making a difference, and it just spoke volumes for them, for the organization itself, being there for 40 years when so many things fall apart after just a few, the love and the way God is working. Like, I felt God's hand over that, even in the hard parts where you did feel the heaviness, like Brittany said, you could still feel, God was there. He was there in the Tenderloin working, and it was so beautiful.
So I think the most impactful moment for me was when I was given an opportunity to share a message from the gospel to a bunch of the residents who were there to get food. And it was the emotions that came afterwards when we were in our small groups, and just the severity and overwhelmingness that is spreading the gospel, and how important it is to get that out there.
All right, and I'll just defer my answer for later.
Okay. If you want to pass the mic back down to Luke. What we wanted to do this morning was to give everybody a chance to give some quick response, because there were so many people that wanted to say something, but we have asked 4 people to share a little bit of a longer testimony. So Luke, I will let you go first. If you want to stand, you can.
Is everybody else going to stand when they go? Okay, all right.
Okay. I know I said we'd give each one of y'all 5 minutes. Let's shoot 3 to 4. Okay.
What was initially kind of on my heart to share was this whole idea of, the prodigal son who is given all these fantastic gifts and then runs off and squanders them, and then runs home. Because what I felt was that, we are all the prodigal son, and then seeing these people, we have more in common with them than we do with Jesus, And to me, that was kind of hard to think about, because it's me and Jesus, we're over here, we're tight. But in all reality, I have more in common with, the people living on the streets that have squandered all their gifts. That's kind of what was initially on my heart. But then the more I thought about how, what in my life is a little bit different with my personal experiences that I could come and share. So I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm an MK. That's a missionary kid. So my parents grew up. I grew up on the mission field. And so y'all's Lottie Moon offerings and all that kind of stuff, that supported us as we did that. So I have a little bit maybe more unique perspective, or different perspective, let me say. So I speak English and Spanish. And in Texas, if you speak English and Spanish, man, you can talk to anybody. That's about it. Out there was multiple people that I was needing to interact with, and I did not speak whatever language they were speaking. There was Chinese, there was Middle Eastern languages, there were some languages I'm not even sure what they were. But as I was called to interact with them, I just kind of had this thought of wow, this is difficult. And that's really frustrating. And I forgot what that was like, being in East Texas, where I got the bases covered. But the scripture that says in Revelation, it says, a great multitude that no one could number from every nation, from all tribes and people and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. So this whole idea of people from every nation and every tribe and every tongue, I don't know, that spoke to me, because we get so used to the idea of people like us, because that's what we're surrounded with. And I'm going to try to tie that in a little bit with Leviticus 19:33, which says, and this is a law, now it's the old law, but still, it's at the heart of who God is. It says, when a foreigner resides among you in your land, do not mistreat them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And so I don't know what that means to you. I know what it means to me. The way that I feel about other people. And so I'm trying to work on that with myself. But anyways, that's kind of what I got and took away from it. Also, that one's mine. And going there with him meant a whole lot. And being able to see just how God moved in your life. And as he said while we were there, I can't remember if it was after we got back, he goes, Dad, we got so much. So.
Thank you, Luke.
I love you. I got to know this man in a very special way, and he's funny. Okay, real quick. My Michael asked me why I was wearing this, because he said, you're not wearing that, right? I said, yes, I am, because it literally tells you what the insides look like right now. The butterflies are going wild, but the emotions are up and down too. Okay, here's the deal. There's a song called, or the lyric is, I don't know, because I don't know the song really, but it says, I left my heart in San Francisco. I did. Not the whole heart, but part of it I left there. Matthew 28:19 and 20, we all know that's the great mission in there. But God gave me another verse for me as I was praying about going on this trip, and it's found in Exodus, and it says, according to the NASB, Nancy Ann Smith Bible, it says, Nancy Ann, I have raised you up for this very purpose, that I might show you my power, and that my name might be proclaimed in all the earth. So here's the deal. His power was he got me on a plane, and I flew, and it landed, and I got off of it. Thank you, Jesus. In California, which is a great state, But one of the things that I wanted to share with you, and I'm making it very short, was we got to work with, I was with Crystal and my Josh, and, he's Tina's Josh too. But anyway, I'm not Crystal, Savannah. My Savannah over there. I'm sorry, baby girl. We worked with Eli and Jared. Jared was a younger guy there. Both of them were raised in the Tenderloin. They understand they understand that area. Well, one of my favorite things that we did was the backpack ministry. We got to call and encourage people to come and get them. We got to meet with the families and register them for the backpacks. And one of the young men that I got to work with, I don't know his name, can't remember, but he was an 8th grade young man, and he was sullen. He did not want to be there, and he did not want to answer a question at all. Ask him, what's your favorite thing to do? Nothing. What do you want to be when you grow up? Nothing. I said, I bet you like soccer, because I'm going to get a smile out of him. He said, I do. I said, well, great. I'm going to put down that you want to be a professional soccer player. This is when I realized that it's not just homeless on the street. It's families that live there. And those babies, that young 8th grade student may grow up to be an Eli and a Jared. But then the street ministry, when we got to go out, I have yet to look at my notes. Are you praying? And I'm not crying either. We got to go out, and there was the 3 of us, Josh and Savannah, and we got to get down and look them in the face. And we got to talk to John, an older gentleman who has COPD, and I told him I had just been diagnosed with it, and he told me what to do and what not to do. I was very pleased with that. And then we got to talk to a young man named Al, who he didn't talk very much, but he did give us, this was his name, Al. And then we talked with Atina, Shannon, Nicole from Longview, and Jeannie. And we got to listen to them, ask them what they'd like us to pray for, and we got to pray with them. But the most important person to me is Cassandra. I met her the day we left. We had decided the night before that we were going to give our sleeping bags, our sheets, our pillows, shoes, whatever we wanted to the first person that we saw when we walked out our door, because we weren't taking them back with us. I walked out the door, there's a group of them, and there's a young lady named Cassandra. I asked her name. I asked her if she'd like my bag, and she said yes, through tears. I asked her how I could pray for her, and I told her I would pray for her, that I loved her, and that God loved her. We walked down to catch the light so we could cross the street. She came up to me, and we're not supposed to hug, but she wanted to give us a hug. She wanted to get a hug. I think she just wanted a hug from a grandmother, and yeah, I'm the oldest. Just so you know. I think that's the very purpose that he raised me up for, was to give that baby girl a hug. And I got to do that. So now I'm going to look at my notes. I'm going to end with these questions that the Lord asked me on Saturday morning. Did we see salvations? Not sure. Only God's going to know it. Did we see smiles placed on broken faces? Yes, we sure did. Did we see grateful people? Yes. Did we see changed lives? That's a yes and no question. We may never know the changes in the lives of those young people and older people that we got to be with, but I do know that there are changed lives right up here. I do know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And we've all come back to be about the Father's business in Nacogdoches County. We're not going to sit on our laurels. We are going to be Caleb's. My age, I'm a Caleb. Give me that mountain. I'm 85. I can get up there. I'm not really yet. But I can do that. So we're going to be about the Father's business. And I thank you for the prayers and the opportunity to go. I thank my Father, my Heavenly Father, for being the wall of fire around us and the glory in our midst.
On our last day there, my group got the opportunity to do street ministry. And as we were going, we were handing out candy and we were praying with the homeless, people who had nothing and that just wanted to be heard. The people that stood out to me the most while we were there were the young women, many of them probably my age, maybe younger, but you wouldn't be able to tell because of the years of homelessness and addiction. One woman in particular who stood out to me was Jeannie. Miss Nancy just mentioned her name. Like the other girls, she was weary, she was covered in filth, and she had a sadness about her. But Jeannie had the most beautiful smile, and her smile was so precious. She was so precious just the way God made her. We talked with Jeannie a while about family. We prayed with her. And before we left, Miss Nancy took her by the hand, looked her in the eye, and told her how beautiful she was. Jeannie teared up, and from the expression on her face, you could tell that that's something that she had not heard in a very long time, if ever. And coming back and thinking about those encounters with the Jeannies and the Cassandras and the Shannons, I can't help but wonder, what would I do, or how would I feel if that was my sister or my mother, or my daughter living on those streets? And as I reflect on that, I think about the darkness that we felt and that we experienced over the people of the Tenderloin District. And that darkness, I've come to realize, is not a darkness caused by drug abuse. It's not caused by poverty or crime or homelessness. It's caused by a lack of Jesus Christ. It's caused by a condition of the souls of the people there in that part of the city. Souls that are shrouded in darkness, that can't bring the hope and light of Jesus Christ into the world around them. And I've realized that it's no different here in East Texas, no different in Nacogdoches, how those people's souls are, how they're covered in darkness, how the lost souls are living in just as much sin. Sin may manifest itself differently, We may not have the same level of drug use or homelessness here as they do in San Francisco, but we're dealing with lost people just like we are over there. And as I settle back into my comfortable, normal life and my routine, I can't help but think what a fool I would be if I came back to Nacogdoches and I said to myself that I don't have the same amount of opportunity here to reach the lost as I did in San Francisco. Jesus told us that the harvest is plentiful. He didn't tell us that the harvest is plentiful everywhere except Nacogdoches.
Okay, I'm going to make it quick because what else do I need to say, really? The first day that we got there, because of what Josh is saying, and everybody else saying, like Savannah, you know, how do we fix this? We have 1 week. We're there Monday through Saturday. But I was so glad that when we got there on Monday, maybe Tuesday morning when we were in training, they kept saying, your goal is to direct the people to 140 Turk. So it took some pressure off of us, because here I am like, how do we get Jesus into their life in a 30-second, 2-minute conversation? But City Impact said, get them to us. Tell them our address is 140 Turk. I mean, I wanted to write it on my arm with a Sharpie. I was like, what was that number we were supposed to do? But it gave us the opportunity to just pour into them and love on them and look them in the eye, but then give them a solution. And then we had to walk away with the hope that those City Impact staffers are going to be ready for them. So just like Josh is saying, when you come back to Nacogdoches, why do I not go about my day, come to Calvary Baptist Church? I mean, I might say that to a friend, but how often do I see somebody needing a solution, and that's kind of the address that right now in our community we can say, come to Calvary. We love people. I'll do this without crying. So the last morning, see how I talked myself up? The last morning, we walked out the door like Miss Nancy said. We had our sleeping bags, which was just a God thing that we even had bags to put them in. Like earlier the day before, we had been given bags for something else. They fit perfectly. We walk out the door, and the first person that I saw, I'm going to call her Tyler because I couldn't remember her name, and I'm pretty sure the Lord said her name was Tyler. So that's how I've been praying for her. But she was squatted down in a way that I cannot fold my body. And I got down in her face, and when she looked up at me with her blue eyes, I started crying. And all I could say was, you are beautiful, you are worthy. Do you know that God created you special? You are loved. Can I pray for you? And she said, yes, yes, yes. And so I did, and I just felt like like everybody said, you just recognize she just needed that moment. I won't know what happened to her, ever, but I said to her, 140 Turk. So if we can just get them there for them to have the hope. So I didn't go naive thinking we were going to save the Tenderloin, but I saw the Lord work in a way that I have the hope that the Tenderloin is making the impact that the City Impact is making the impact that they stand for.
Thank you, Hillary. Just want to thank you for indulging us with this time. I know that we'll be a little bit late getting to Sunday school maybe, but I think this was very worthwhile to be able to share this with you. I had a very, very short message I was going to share with you. It's not very short enough, though, so I'm not going to do that today. But I do want to leave you with this thought. You know, one of the things that I realized as I was walking around the streets there in San Francisco with all of these folks here, as I was smelling the very strong scent of marijuana coming through the windows, and anytime I walked out on the street, I joked with them, kind of said, man, I feel so much better whenever I walk outside because of marijuana, but it's secondhand smoke. But anyway, besides that. But I want to leave this with you, this thought. What is the worship that really moves the heart of God? You know, we come here and we sing, and that's good. That's part of worship. We come and we sing. We experience the Lord together. But there's another part of worship that's very important as well, that's even more important, and that's obedience to God. And even beyond that, it's to do, to take actions, to go out and to reach those with the gospel. But sometimes getting them the gospel means we also need to meet those needs that they have. In fact, we're commanded to do that in Scripture. And so I just want to ask you today, and I want to ask myself, am I truly worshiping the Lord? Or is it just something I go through the motions of every Sunday morning? Or maybe every once in a while on Wednesday night? So I'll leave you with that thought. We're not going to have a formal invitation today, but know this, that the invitation for us to join God in His work is always open to us. It never ends as long as we have breath in our bodies. And I want you to know, if you're lost out there today, that if you've never come to Christ, that the invitation for you is always open as well, as long as you have breath in your body. So I beg you to come to Christ today if you don't know Him. And I beg us, as the family of God, as the people of God, to go out and reach this world right here in East Texas, because believe it or not, there are people who are spiritually homeless that we pass every day. There are people who are spiritually folded over like that fentanyl fold that some of them talked about earlier. And we may not recognize it because they look well dressed. They speak well. But they're just as homeless as anyone else when it comes to the spiritual life. All right, well, let's stand up together today and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, again, we praise you, we thank you. I thank you for all of these on the stage, all of these out here in the congregation. Lord, I praise you for giving me the opportunity to see your love in action, to see your hands moving, your feet moving through these people here on the stage, and others I've watched throughout my years here at Calvary who are doing the work, who are going out and sharing your love with others. Father, get glory and honor from our lives today, and I pray that our Sunday school classes, Father, would bring glory to